Did Trump cause the downfall of Harley Davidson, or was it something else? That's what we're going to look at today, and we all kind of know that Harley Davidson is in a downward spiral. And people have been talking about the downfall of Harley Davidson for years and years now, but it seems like we are at the closest point we could ever see to actually not having Harley Davidson around as a company in the United States. I know that sounds a little far-fetched, but at the end of the day, they definitely are in this downward spiral. But was it caused by Trump? So of course, I'm going to give you my opinion. I know you guys have some strong opinions, and make sure you leave them down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, Trump's tariffs in his first term and proposed tariffs in his second term for sure had some impact on certain industries, right? We've seen him do tariffs on solar panels, washing machines, steel, and other goods, and pretty much everything out of China. Now, of course, there was certain percentages, right? And sometimes those percentages would drop over a number of years. There was proposed tariffs with Canada and Mexico, and that whole NAFTA agreement kind of got reworked, right? And then anytime immigration got too high in the United States, Trump would use those tariffs against Mexico. Like, hey, look, we're going to raise it 5 points, 5% here, 5% there, 5% there, you know, like just keep raising it until you turn people around in Mexico so they don't get to the border. So how did this affect manufacturing? Well, you know, there were steel companies that saw this as a blessing. I mean, it really was a huge blessing for some of the bigger ones. Nucor, your aluminum companies, right? There was a 10% tariff coming in for that as well. So it helped them to not only produce more US-made steel, but to hire more workers. And of course, this was the case in a number of different manufacturing jobs, right? They were able to increase wages. They were able to sometimes double workforces for some of the smaller companies, and they were able to have a more solid platform. It kind of took some of the stress from, you know, steel companies and some other companies too of, you know, hey, we're having all this imported steel and they're just dropping the price like crazy, and they're just, you know, flooding the market essentially with a lot of these items that we can't produce at that cost, because in other countries, of course, as you know, they don't pay the same labor rates. And yes, there was retaliatory tariffs from other countries as well, mainly for the purposes of this video in Europe, right? Now, Europe is the second biggest market for Harley Davidson. So what Harley ended up doing is creating a plant in Thailand, right? So they could then more freely trade between Europe and not pay those exorbitant tariffs that Europe then put on Harley Davidson and stuff coming into their country. Now, I really want to get down to the bottom of this. Is this Trump and his tariffs, or something else that's actually ruining Harley Davidson? Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it. At least I'm going to give you my opinion. But at the end of the day, one thing that we all want to see is more motorcycles, more motorcyclists on the road. And we've created one more motorcyclist, and I'm proud to be a part of that, with our first giveaway with the Indian Scout Bobber. That went out to Headshot Nation member Loren out in Wyoming, all the way out there, and it's his first motorcycle. A pretty impressive first motorcycle. I know a lot better than anything I first rode. But I thought it would be cool to follow that up with the first motorcycle I ever had, which is the Harley Davidson Iron 883. So we are now giving this one away. I got a lot of cool accessories we're going to be putting on the bike, so stay tuned for that. But whoever gets this thing is going to get an incredible 2020 Iron 883. Now, we partnered up with Them. They are the same veteran-owned company that I worked with on the first one. We like supporting veterans. I know y'all do as well. And one thing I like they do is they keep the time frame short. You only have until December 13th, 2024 at midnight Pacific Standard Time. It gets cut off. So we've kept it short so you have a real chance at winning something freaking awesome. Now, the way you enter is simple. There's one link in the description of the video. Click the link. That will take you to Headshot Nation, and that's how you sign up. Headshot Nation is a place where you can message me. You can create your own thread. You can send messages or talk back and forth with community members. It is the only gun and motorcycle community on the entire internet. But you get early access, exclusive videos, and ad-free videos at that. So it's just a phenomenal community that we started with the Scout Bobber. We're continuing on with the 2020 Iron 883. Can't wait to see who wins this motorcycle. Maybe we make a brand new motorcyclist once again, or maybe we add the 5th or 6th steed to your stable. Whoever wins this thing is going to get an incredible freaking motorcycle. So again, click the link. You got to sign up before December 13th. That's when the cutoff is. Good luck to every single one of you. But as a whole, what is the goal of these tariffs, right? Some people argue that, it just costs consumers a little bit more money, or it costs them a lot more money. It actually takes money away from consumers, from you and me. But then it can actually bring in a form of taxes. It actually was our biggest form of taxes for the longest time until 1913. So it can hurt in some areas, but it can definitely help as well. And I don't know if you remember that time, but I certainly do. Companies with, of course, tax breaks and stuff like that were paying people more. They were giving out crazy bonuses. I don't know if y'all remember that as well. I want to say it was Christmas 2017, 2018, whatever it was. But companies were really taking care of their people because their tax rate was down, manufacturing was up here, and so it seemed like a pretty great time. And the whole idea of it was to save American jobs. There's so many companies that are willing to send jobs overseas, willing to send this production line overseas. And I feel like that's a lot of time how it starts. It's just like with Harley, right? Moving production to Thailand of just the Revolution Max motors right now. But that could just be the start of it. But essentially, you'll see like this company will send this production over. So yeah, 500 or maybe 200 jobs were lost. Nobody's really going to make a big fuss about that. But eventually, sometimes these entire companies move to another country and then import these goods into the United States. So now you've taken away American jobs. You're making a cheaper product because of those labor costs, selling it back into the US for a higher profit. So while it may cost us a little bit more to buy certain things, I don't know about you, I would rather support a fellow American that knows what it's like to work on a daily basis than fill the pockets of any CEO, no matter where they are. So did this hurt Harley Davidson? Did it hurt their profit margins? Well, I'm sure it did, but I mean, you have to remember, Harley Davidson is getting imported parts from all around the world. Even though they can still claim made in the USA, they still get a lot of parts from other places, including Mexico. So naturally, the prices of these things will go up. But was that the cause of Harley Davidson's downfall? Well, in my opinion, absolutely not. Matt Levitich, I think that was the old CEO's name. He had a plan of introducing 200 new Harley Davidsons in the amount of 10 years, right? I think that was a little overzealous at the end of the day, but he had ideas like the Street Fighter or the Bronx, right? Of course, the Pan America came to fruition. But I think his whole idea and his whole goal was to get some cheaper models into the production line. Now you've seen these cheaper models, your Street Series, even though they didn't sell well, whatever. Street Series, the Sportsters, the 48s, the Irons, all those bikes been discontinued in favor of your $12,000 Nightster, $17,000 Sportster S. These are the cheapest motorcycles that you can get in Harley Davidson's lineup. I talked about this a few days ago. I won't rehash the whole thing, but this is a big part of the problem. You have Harley selling 150, 160,000 motorcycles worldwide, right? With the large majority of those sold in the United States, while Honda is out here selling 18 million. Why? Well, Hondas are known to be very reliable. And they sell, I don't know, 3 times as many motorcycles in the United States alone, by the way. But you can get a Honda Rebel 300, 500, the Fury, the whatever, up to the Goldwing, right? So you can spend a lot of money on a Honda. But at the end of the day, they have something for everyone. Look at the Grom, how popular that bike has been, right? So that's what I'm trying to get at there. Harley has hurt themselves by cutting off all the cheap options that they had before, where you could at least get a Harley under 10 grand with all the taxes and fees and all this kind of stuff out the door. Now it's impossible. Again, I encourage you to watch the video I made a couple days ago because I further expand on that point. I'll make sure I try to leave a card up here for that. So, no entry-level bikes. Well, what else are they doing wrong? To me, one of the biggest issues that they have is their CEO, right? He is the first non-American to run a brand, right, like Harley Davidson, that is so steeped in American tradition. And I know some people are like, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It means a lot, right? He takes over Puma, who cares, right? At the end of the day, who cares? You take over somewhere like even Starbucks or I'm trying to think about some other big companies, right? Nike or something like that. Okay, who cares? But our values are different than what other countries in the world, and people in the world, their values are just different. And American tradition is a big part of Harley Davidson. And so by hiring somebody from Germany, I think you lose a little bit of that. And we've seen that, where instead of selling more motorcycles, he wants to make Harley Davidson a premium brand. Now, Harley Davidson has always commanded big prices, right? But at the end of the day, it was, for some period of time at least, seen as kind of a working man's motorcycle, right? Or at least there was models in the lineup that could be considered a working man's model. Now, he doesn't mind selling less motorcycles as long as the profit margins are higher. Let's make them even more premium than what they already are, and by offering fewer of them, we make the supply and demand go up. That worked for a while, but now you see where dealers have all of this freaking inventory, and you're like, oh, well, no. Harley's not as exclusive of a brand as what I had perceived. And yes, he did the same thing at Puma, and it worked very well. But you're talking about a shoe company compared to a motorcycle company where you have 120 years, right, of tradition that you're trying to slowly kind of change and evolve into something else. And as you've seen, especially this year, it's not working out for you. Where they have kind of annexed a lot of these ideas for a Bronx. They've taken away the cheaper motorcycles, right? They're getting involved into things that Americans just don't simply like, right? Harley riders, Indian riders, cruiser riders, a lot of them, not saying that we all think the same way, but a lot of us don't like the things that Harley's been involved with. We saw that over the summer with their woke policies. Now, it took Robbie Starbuck to kind of bring this to light, right? I was like, holy crap, I didn't know about any of this. But they had started this when Jochen Zeitz came on the board of directors, right? It slowly started to change. So they started donating to companies with pride companies and getting into LGBTQ, AAARP stuff, and then implementing DEI policies. Now, they reversed course quickly on this when the backlash started, right? But it did have an impact. No matter what anybody says, on some level, it had an impact on how people viewed Harley Davidson. The damage had been done. And it all goes back to Jochen Zeitz, because those are values that he 100% believes in and that he's carried forward. Even in his foundation, right? You see the language of equity and inclusion and diversity and all this kind of stuff. It's just something he's steeped in. Now, you may be asking, well, okay, so they've moved production to Thailand. That's another thing, by the way. You know, he lied. He said American motorcycles that are sold here are made here, period. Well, when you buy a Pan America, you buy a Nightster or the Sportster S, anything with a Revolution Max motor, they're going to be produced in Thailand. Now, if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll get a cheaper motorcycle out of it. Good luck with that. Okay, we understand you're getting some parts from this country, that country, whatever. They're still assembled here, and you're still hiring American hands built the motorcycle that you ride. That's no longer going to be the case for a section of the motorcycles that they have. You may be thinking, man, with all these perceived mistakes, and again, this is just my opinion, why haven't they fired the guy? Well, look no further than the board of directors, which, by the way, Jochen Zeitz is on. That's how he started with the company. When you look at some of these board of directors, you see who they actually donate to, right? Which is a lot of them donate strictly to Democrats. You have one, I forget his name, I'll drop it here, but anyways, you know, he ran the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'm thinking to myself, how the hell, where are the qualifications there? One was the CEO of Ford, so I guess I kind of get that. I'm looking for qualifications too, not just who they vote for, but when you see how many of them and the way they donate, that tells you kind of some of the values they support. So why would they kick a guy out, even if the sales are dropping, when that guy's on the board with them and they believe in the same things that he believes? That's why you haven't seen this guy fired yet. 100%. If they had a different board of directors, not saying they all have to be Republican either, I'm not saying that at all, but a board that cares about the company, about the future of the company, and not their personal values, Jochen Zeitz would have been gone months ago. So now it's up to shareholders to bring up a proposition or whatever to fire the board of directors. They'll need a majority and all that kind of stuff. But until that happens, I personally think that these shareholders, and this is this one might be a stretch for some of you, and you may totally disagree with this, but I think they would rather see the company slowly burn out than to remove the politics from the decisions that they're making. I'm one that supports Harley Davidson, right? I have supported them a lot over the past couple of years. But at the end of the day, I think they have a huge cultural problem on their hands, and they just continue to take steps backwards right now when they need a win. They need a big win. And I'm hoping that they do turn this around. I just don't see it. After everything that's happened this summer, plus the sales numbers that have come in, you think at this point they'd be like, okay, we need a change. But I think they're sticking to those values. Even if they say they remove some of it from the language, at the end of the day, I see this a little bit differently. It wasn't Trump's tariffs that ruined Harley Davidson. It was Harley Davidson that ruined Harley Davidson. And if they don't stop the bleeding, I think at some point we may not have Harley Davidson in the next 5 years, or sooner than that. I have no idea. I hope I'm wrong, though, when it comes to that, and I hope they turn this thing around. That's just my opinion, though. I'd love to hear yours. What do you think? What is ruining Harley Davidson? And will they actually get out of it? No matter what your opinion is. If you agree with me or disagree with me, whatever, leave that down below. What do you think? If you guys like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.